Or, since we know all of the splitting is happening in his brain, therein lies the possibility that every time his plug falls out, a new personality is created. And there's even a slim chance that he literally does have hundreds of smaller brains in his head, if it is in fact correct that he physically splits too, like starfish do. Though it's far more likely that he's just splitting his mentality across dozens of intelligence quotients he could have. If unrestricted by reality, Patrick could very well have infinite people in his mind. Depending on how many times his brain has unplugged over the course of his lifetime, each time it does so, it cognitively kills him. And in death, like all starfish, it duplicates him. As we see, he may originally be a smart fish, but one cognitive arrest occurred and he sat for years and still today as primarily a fish. Now this could all be a genetic case of severe Huntington's, which is slowly dragging him down, but it's most likely to be as I said it is. That of course is referring to my theory, which as a whole, I don't really believe. I'm just laying out the evidence and providing a semi-conclusion to what I think this star could really be doing to explain it, using actual logic that the TV series really doesn't have. I don't really think this theory probably isn't the case, but I want to push it. I don't believe any of it, though Friday the 13th is worthy of something this eerie. I hope it gives you more insight. I do think something is up with Patrick. Not something evil, just something mentally wrong with him. I mean, we see other starfish in this series who are totally smart. Patrick's just a dummy most of the time. So here's the best character analysis I could do with what I have to work with. Patrick's simply confused and out of his mind. Once again, this show proves that it's a cesspool of insanity. All of the characters are based off of the 7 deadly sins, and that is no coincidence. So what do you think? Is Patrick insane but not evil? I mean, sure, he snaps and freaks out and is frequently randomly rude and mean, but those are all branches of his personalities, and is commonly attributed with the frustration of having mental disorders. There's also a strong chance he has emotional disorders and some neurodegenerative disorders if you do in fact, realistically, look at his character. You have to consider other things too, like the big point I've seen dozens of people use to prove he's a psycho. They watched the episode known as The Card, in which Patrick says that his intelligence varies, and that they'll never know just how smart he truly is, as he likes to mix it up. He literally says that. What? So, I was right? There are even a couple times, one which I remember, where Squidward asks Patrick how dumb he is, and Patrick tells him that it changes. That it depends. It's variable depending on what? I don't know, but there are dozens of episodes I didn't cover when formulating this theory. There's even an episode where Patrick says dumb people are blissfully ignorant to how dumb they really are. A smart statement he says right before he totally zones out as he degrades to a stupider intelligence. So you guys, the comment section, you guys always provide the slickest, most strangely convincing pieces of evidence, even for an outlandish theory like this one. But if you can in fact find something else, this may actually be very realistic. If you can highlight even more times he says smart things, that'll do. I can't keep going here, I'm getting dizzy. Until next time, I'm the Theorizer. You may recall a recent theory I proposed. It was probably the most unlikely but insanely wild theory I've ever constructed. It was slammed by the Viacom police and removed from YouTube, but in November I re-uploaded it with some changes so that they were less inclined to copyright claim it. Watch it immediately by clicking on the white rectangle box that pops up in the top right corner now, and then come back here because I asked you guys to find scenes where Patrick suddenly became intelligent, and you guys delivered, so now I have several clips of suspicious Patrick to support my theory that he has hundreds of split personalities inside of his head. This theory of mine, it's honestly ridiculous. And for those of you watching, I'm not one of those parody theory channels, I'm legit as can be, but when I get a chance like this to just go all out with ridiculousness that sort of makes sense, I take the opportunity. Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and as many of you pointed out, Patrick clearly did in fact start as a dumb child, not a smart one. That likely came down the road. But while half of you tried to piece together more clues from various episodes, the other half tried to figure out what sort of traumatic event from his past could lead to such a fractured mind. But before we get into the pre-show trauma, we have to start with more clues, and there are a lot of them. So first and foremost, in my last theory, I was unable to remember the episode where Patrick duplicated. You see, a key point of my last theory was that Patrick, like most starfish, has the ability to duplicate and split. And dozens of you pointed out that it was seen at the end of the karate episode. His arm falls off, and then he says not to worry, he's a starfish and it will grow back. And then it does. But then his arm grows into a whole new body, and he essentially duplicates. Boom! It is canonically correct. And as dozens of you pointed out, at the end of the episode Spy Buddies, there are literally two Patricks standing there laughing, and it cuts to black, and nobody knows why. But now into his bursts of intellect, because there are a lot of them. There's the ones I mentioned in my other Patrick video, and then there are these. Let's kick it off with something Buggy and Iggy Fan 15 reminded me of. I can't believe I forgot this when writing my last theory, but in the episode Squidtastic Voyage, SpongeBob and Patrick go inside of Squidward while driving a miniature submarine, and Patrick has a burst of chemical intelligence. See the following clip.
If you could make a big enough burp,
we could filter the CO2 through our ballast tanks, refire the engines, and ride the shockwave out of here.
Wow. He's right.
What? We're going through with your plan, Patrick.
Yay!
What plan?
See? He talks about filtering CO2, and then he snaps out of it and gets all dumb, questioning his very own plan. And if they did this once or twice throughout the series, I could understand their comedic standpoint, but this is a staple of his character. Flashes of intelligence, which makes it a true part of his brain. Commenter Hailed Space 25 stated that in the episode Ghoul Fools, Patrick claimed that staring at the clouds calmed his inner demons. Right there at the beginning of the episode, and this ain't a one-off. Patrick constantly references how his mind is a raging mess, whether it be like this, or by calling it a machination-filled enigma. It's a smidgen suspicious. Another good point I debated writing about in the original video is in the episode where Patrick becomes king, and commenter Love Your Creations reminded me that I should have added it. After Patrick is told he's actually royalty, he instantly becomes a totalitarian dictator, ordering and stealing anything he wants. He becomes vicious and unpredictable, a whole new personality that is activated by complete freedom to do whatever he wants. Eventually, everyone leaves him and he stares into a mirror where he sees a terrifying reflection of his attitude. It makes him snap back to how he used to be after reminding him of the cruel and malignant monarch he's become. This episode was actually one of the reasons I proposed this whole theory to begin with, so how I forgot it the first time around is a mystery to me. But it's very key to everything. He literally talks with his personality. More on that in a minute. There are even some instances in which Patrick acts dumb while he does extremely smart things. Once, he helped SpongeBob cheat on his driver's test by giving him all the answers that Patrick seemingly knew, but SpongeBob didn't. Patrick even got his driver's license in one episode, despite being a blatant idiot during other moments. He makes no sense. Another very brief but possibly significant moment was pointed out by user Star, who said that in the episode where they keep swearing, Patrick has a mini moment. He approaches a dumpster and reads a word very poorly. He has a hard time reading it, but then he reads the swear word just fine, and explains to SpongeBob how it is a sentence enhancer. So he goes from not knowing how to read to knowing how to read to using slightly large words to explain swearing to SpongeBob. No one is this inconsistent. Also, in the episode with Patrick's parents, he's running around like a madman, and SpongeBob asks if he's having another episode. Seems as though these spastic mental breakdowns are becoming more frequent if SpongeBob refers to them like this. A lot of you also pointed out this clip from the episode, I Had an Accident.
No, your other bottom!
Don't you have to be stupid somewhere else?
Not until 4.
This and many cases exactly like this pop up in the show, where Patrick seems to schedule his intelligence and his stupidity, as if it has a set schedule, one he may or may not control. And he claims this on a couple of occasions, not just once. He's aware of when he's smart and dumb. And about the milk spilling during that other episode, look at what YouTube user I'm King had to say about it. I don't know if this is coincidental or accurate, but it is deep as hell. Finally, there's one thing I simply cannot fail to discuss, and that is an entity known as Alternate Universe Patrick. The Mirror Patrick. You know, he appears in the mirror more than just that one time when Patrick was king. He appears many times, actually. So we know that this whole thing isn't exactly a one-off. In the episode entitled Roller Cowards, Patrick's personality insults him for being a wimpy crybaby. Patrick gives him a smack, asking him why he'd say this if they settled it last time. This means they have a relationship. They know each other, and they seem to hate each other. This is not some kind of paranormal thing going on. This is all in Patrick's head. And the fact that he so truthfully believes AU Patrick is a thing is representative of tons of delusional disorders, paranoid schizophrenia, psychosis, insanity, or he's talking to his split personalities. And guess what? In many other films and TV, when depicting split personalities that take over, typically, a mirror reflects the other one trapped inside. Off the top of my head, examples include Total Drama All-Stars, or more well-known, Supernatural, in which the current host of a body can talk to another spirit inside. I think I even saw it in Bates Motel or something similar to it. My point is, I've seen this mirror representation of multiple personalities in countless films and TV. It's a symbolic depiction of interpersonality communication. And Patrick does it again. In The Great Patty Caper, Patrick looks at his reflection in a window, claiming it's suspicious. Then it gets all arrogant and walks away creepily. There's now lots of confirmation. We, surprisingly, have a ton more evidence to support my ridiculous claim that Patrick's a sufferer of some kind of duplicating personality disorder, because the writers are being consistent with these oddly pointless topics and random things he says, but they aren't one-offs. He keeps doing them. But some of you commenters took the whole idea further. Back to that commenter named Star, they claimed something pretty intriguing. Something I'd even pondered before, that Patrick, sure, he was born dumb, but he did clearly grow up to be somewhat intelligent during at one point in his life. Realizing his life was an arrogant, lonely waste, he pulled the plug on his intellect, suppressing that personality so that he could live freely but dumb. And we know Smart Patrick would do this exact kind of thing, because we literally see him do it again in the Patrick Smart Pants episode. This is all an excellent idea, and it flows with everything we've seen and everything I've been saying. So please, I beg of you to keep theorizing in this comment section, because things just keep coming and coming. Thanks for subscribing, everyone. Until next time, The Theorizer isn't home right now. theorizer, and what began as a simple video of mine has since spiraled into arguably my magnum opus. Watch this video immediately. It's part 1. You can view it by clicking or tapping the white rectangular box that appears above right now. Once you've completed it, you also must watch part 2. That can be accessed by clicking the second box that'll appear above or just by searching it up. In summary, what I've done over the course of these past several months is create a massively exaggerated character study of Patrick Star from the Nickelodeon show SpongeBob SquarePants. I have looked at his many outbursts of intellect and the many times he also does dumb things. I have analyzed and, with a virtually stunning amount of evidence, have concluded him to be insane, delusional, and conflicted with a unique kind of multiple personality disorder which merges with his duplicating starfish behavior. You commenters have provided evidence that simply won't stop coming, so I have no choice. I must continue to prove the insane theory which states that Patrick's the deepest character I have ever seen. Let's begin with some really strong evidence, something tens of you mentioned. In the episode entitled Chimps Ahoy, Patrick shows SpongeBob a mirror and tells him that he's invented a parallel universe. SpongeBob tells him it's just a mirror, but then Patrick turns around to find an alternate universe character inside of it. Even in a very recent episode, Patrick's reflection in a window talks to him and convinces him to become a tour guide. For those of you who have watched part 2 of this theory trilogy, you'll know all about the mirrors. And Chimps Ahoy marks one of, if not the first episode in which a mirror acts strangely like this. This scene is likely where the coined term alternate universe Patrick comes from. There are actually multiple characters who have an AU version, but as we've seen at this point, Patrick is the only important one. All of this provides one key point of information, that Patrick calls his reflections alternate versions of himself. Not only is that bluntly direct proof that he thinks of himself in multiple versions, but there's something else here that I'll bring up at the end of the video, so until then, on to the next bit of evidence. YouTube channel Fractorated stated that there's a good possibility that the reason Patrick freaks out before his parents arrive in that one episode is because he used to be smart, and he's afraid that after he pulled the plug, his parents won't like him. This makes good sense, but we do know that as a very young child, he was stupid. This was pointed out by YouTube user Piece of Cheese, who linked a clip of Patrick reading a stupid poem when he was younger. Truth be told, as I predicted, Patrick was a dumb child who grew smarter, until his trauma of being too smart led him to pulling the plug. A few more of you pointed out how Patrick was also likely traumatized as a kid, as he was bullied by many. His sister also went missing for some time, further pushing trauma to be a large factor in his final decision. Users Ben P and Adara the Shallot pointed out something that wouldn't appear as much until you watch my theories. In an earlier episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob tries to get Patrick hyped and asks him if he's ready to go crazy, and Patrick responds with, "I'm already hearing voices." So here's canonical proof that he hears voices in his head. This indicates schizophrenia, and possibly, very possibly, the voices being let out could be the others trapped inside, which overlays a whole other level of freaky on top of all of this. Now that's some good, hard evidence. Some more evidence hidden in plain sight was found by Vanessa Venables, who commented that at the 1815 mark in the episode Frozen Face-Off, Sandy announces that they need a scientist, of course referring to herself. But then Patrick cuts right in and sighs, asking them why he has to do everything. Sandy then turns him into a propeller, but right there, Patrick basically just admitted that he is, or at least he thinks he is, a scientist. This is true, we've seen it in Patrick Smartpants. This version of Patrick subliminally knows he's a scientist, but he doesn't really act like it. We have already established a lot more, but before I flood into the true mind blow, I want to show a couple more comments that have good ideas I think we all should ponder upon. Dragon Stim Mac commented on Patrick's behavior in the snowball fighting episode. Patrick is incapable of making a snowball, but he manages to construct a snow cube, a snow pyramid, and a snow model of deoxyribonucleic acid, all within a matter of seconds. Physically impossible, I know, but still interesting enough to include here. Lynchia Rodin commented an interesting theory of their own as well. They proposed that Patrick's many personalities are mimicking the mannerisms and intelligences of others in Bikini Bottom. King Patrick is greedy like Mr. Krabs, Main Patrick is dumb like SpongeBob, hence their friendship compatibility, and Patrick Smartpants is like Sandy in the scientific sense. It's intriguing to think that he may draw from his surroundings, and it's not at all far-fetched. This is a good one to ponder. As highlighted by Cerberus 509, in the new special episode The Legend of Bikini Bottom, something happens at the 333 mark. Patrick tells SpongeBob that the only thing to fear, and then he pauses, forgetting the saying, and then he screams, "is yourself," while he holds up, get this, a mirror, which then responds to him and speaks to SpongeBob for many seconds. This alternate universe Patrick seems much more similar to normal Patrick, implying it's another dumb one. Dozens of you pointed out something that practically confirms my whole theory here. This following clip of Patrick literally embodies everything I've been claiming in my videos up until this point. In the 20th episode of the 9th season, Patrick does the following.
Life is but a walking shadow.
As you can see, he has that sudden snap from idiocy to intelligence. He says a crazy smart statement before once again pausing and flopping onto the ground as if nothing happened. He's referencing Macbeth here, I believe, quite the scholar Patrick seems to be. Then a lawnmower slices him up and he proves once again that he can multiply. It's almost like Nickelodeon's handing this one to me on a silver frickin' platter, I swear to God. And now that we've completely updated the evidence, it's time to delve into the mind blowers. The ideas of both my and your creation, which make all too much sense. Some of these are a bit longer, so I'll just flash them up on the screen for a few seconds at a time. We have a comment from Maria Eduarda Fernandez, a comment from Tiberius Ravenwolf, and a comment from Sharon, all which have ideas I could certainly flow with. They all make sense, they all have certain levels of earth-shatteringness to them, and they all fit with what I've been saying. However, there is one massive underlying mystery that I've been setting out to solve since the first video, which I think I might possibly now have hit. With the aid of commenters who have sparked ideas and taking a large step back and looking at the evidence from the most delusional perspective I could dream up, I have something here. It starts with Nern for the Win, who proposed something that literally shattered my reality of the whole situation. It was something I'd always considered, but I didn't even know it. I didn't think it would be as shocking to me as it was, but the idea that each episode is a different personality hit me like a rocket-propelled grenade. Spectator72, MCTNT, and Kent Skates all had the thought that the entire show was happening in Patrick's head, or that he knew it was a show. But the idea that no two Patricks are the same, that's where all of the evidence truthfully leads to. And so now, it's my time to do what I do best. Patrick seems to think his multiple personality disorder is a fractured multiverse. What I mean is, he thinks that each of his personalities is a parallel universe of someone he could have been. All levels of intelligence, all shades of narcissism, all ambitions and rejections, everything. He gives us proof in Chimps Ahoy that he believes this, causing me to question if his anxiety and fears ultimately have mentally killed him. If someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder or schizophrenia or maybe even multiple personas strongly believes something about themselves, it can build up their fears and anxiety and make them a reality. It's the nature of having a mind. So if the conflicted Patrick Star can only interpret his disorder as a mental multiverse, then the entire puzzle that is my theory would click itself together. With my evidentially structural theory, and you guys providing even more evidence, we have finally, with the use of our own insanity, solved the 19-year-old psychotic mystery surrounding Patrick the Starfish. And now, only one flaw is risen from all of this. Not actually a flaw per se, but rather an implication on every other character. Since this show uses comedy over every other writing tool, we've seen mirror SpongeBob and mirrored other characters too. As I said, these are likely just harmless figments of the characters' imaginations, unlike Patrick's, which are the most frequent ones, and the only ones he shares a clear, complex relationship with. But think of it like this. The reason that the television show SpongeBob SquarePants lacks continuity, the reason there's no overarching story, is because each episode, the characters are reset. They are a different personality, or rather, each episode takes place in its own universe. Shockingly enough, this would apply to the majority of children's television shows, and the freaky fact is that it is true. The creators are unintentionally doing it by leaving in continuity errors. It's the way TV shows work. However, it would appear that Patrick just intentionally embodies it. There's one final question I have about all of this, though. If Patrick asexually reproduces, and he does, we now know that, then is he technically immortal? Research has been done into the lifespans of regenerative starfishes, but it's hard to tell. Actually, no it isn't. If you've been following, then you know for a fact that Nickelodeon would write Patrick like this. The unending torment Patrick endures is inflicted onto everybody else through his stupidity, forever. So we've done Plankton, we've done 3 videos on Patrick, now it's time to move on to SpongeBob's mentality. Perhaps his overactive niceness is because he's intentionally dropping to Patrick's level so that Patrick has a friend. Or better, maybe he's been driven to the point of ignorant bliss due to the way Patrick has been acting. Squidward's insanity has been caused by Patrick as well. Squidward's on his way to becoming like SpongeBob, and that'll be the day when we see Squidward get too mad. Then he'll be completely snapped. Whenever Squidward normally can't handle something, he becomes carefree and laughs crazy like SpongeBob, going virtually insane. Does this apply that this whole time, SpongeBob is actually the psychotic one, driven past annoyance and rage into a complete snap? That's for another video. This was so much fun to make, and so interesting. Until next time, I'm the Theorizer. It's Friday the 13th again, and you all know what that means. I'm covering more SpongeBob SquarePants, the show of absolute terror. Whether it be Plankton, the attritional rapid-force psychologically manipulative war mastermind of Breakdown, or Patrick, who suffers from trauma-induced anxiety-triggered spontaneously duplicative multi-intellectual dissociative identity disorder, paranoid schizophrenia, and chronic delusions of a mental multiverse, this show has demonstrated to me that it has a lot to unpack. So, in an attempt to use insanity to take this as far as I seriously can, today we are dissecting SpongeBob himself, and how he's clinically insane. supervisor, and SpongeBob SquarePants himself is a lot like Squidward tentacles, but only in the moments where Squidward acts crazy. SpongeBob is always crazy, hopping around like a maniac, brain turned to absolute mush, etc. Squidward, however, when something goes very wrong or he simply cannot take it anymore, he freaks out, starts laughing like a crazy person, and giggling like SpongeBob.